Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings. Welcome to Ecommerce Conversations, a weekly podcast from Practical E-commerce, hosted by entrepreneur Eric Bandholz.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Bandholz back again with another E-commerce Conversations. Hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the table from me, once again, Brandon.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
I'm great. Now that we're back in the saddle, I think it's either episode 2 or 3 between the two of us.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, but I remember we've talked a couple of times before.
Yeah. For those who didn't catch those episodes, who the hell are you?
I'm Brandon. Years ago, I think it's been 24 years ago now, I started a shoe company that we sell shoes to guys with big feet. It's called 2BigFeet. I know we're really unique in our name.
And you know what's funny though is like, even though I'm 6'5", like top 1% height, like my shoes are 12, so I don't have a problem.
Yeah, that's pretty small considering we started at 14.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And that there's actually people out there with feet that big.
Or
bigger. Yeah, because you go up to what, 23 or?
We are working on 25s. They're not in yet, so the biggest we have in stock is a 21. Yeah. But we'll have 25s before the fall.
And is that with your own brand, or is that?
That's with our brand. It's called Michael Ellis Footwear. We sell 40 brands of other people's stuff and have for 20-something years. And it's always been a struggle to find some of the items that our customers want. And we beg and plead with manufacturers, these big national, international brands, multi-billion-dollar companies. And, it's not a business decision they're going to make to invest in extreme sizes and widths for the popular styles. So after years and years of begging, we finally just decided to take matters into our own hands.
You would say it's not a big opportunity, but it should be.
Yeah, it's both a big opportunity and not a big opportunity. I guess there's not a lot of people ask, why are you making size 21, 22, 23? There's not a lot of people that need that size, but the people that do need that size desperately need that size. And that's our customer base. And, we don't want to leave anybody out. So we won't make 100 different styles in those crazy extreme sizes. But I don't want like a 16-year-old kid who hits a size 21 to all of a sudden not have anything he can wear on his feet.
Yeah. I mean, because at that point, what are their options? Just like making custom shoes? And that's got to cost thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah. It's the cheapest custom shoes we've seen are $600 or so a pair. They're handmade, leather sole, fully hand stitched from top to bottom, hand cut. The leathers, they just, make a template out of like cardboard and cut them by hand. Takes a long time to make them, months of lead time. And then, it's super, super expensive. So you think about,
and those are like dress shoes too. They're not like sneakers.
They're like dress, casual. They really just look like ugly shoes that you would have seen in like the 1800s. I mean, they're not even anything a young guy would want to wear. And we have parents that are asking, they call us and are desperate to find something for their kid. And it's for prom or it's for, just walking to school. And, these, if you're 6'8", 7 foot tall and, probably 200-300 pounds and also have like an enormous foot, the clothing situation's a problem, the height, the weight, everything else. I mean, it's an impressionable time. It's hard on a lot of these kids to go into school. And like, imagine showing up in like some,
you can't even get the Jordans. Yeah. Like they're not even available.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So we empathize with them. And even if that's not a huge moneymaker in those sizes, but we want to be able to say we've got something for everybody that needs a pair of shoes.
Yeah. So will the goal be, like a casual shoe or is like a sneaker, a basketball shoe, and then like a formal shoe? Or like, because there's so many different styles of shoes, you talk about these people with enormous feet. like even enormous for your customers. And like, how do they build out those options?
We want to have something in major categories, like one style, maybe in a couple of colors, 1 or 2 colors, in all the major categories for guys.
So what are those major categories then?
You need something that you can wear every day, a sneaker, a walking shoe kind of thing.
So those are like the common projects.
Your everyday,
Koyos.
Not your dad New Balance, cut the grass shoe, but looks a little bit nicer. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, you can wear it every day. And then you need a dress shoe. I mean, I know it's not as popular as it used to be. COVID certainly decimated the dress shoe industry for men for years. But if you go to a wedding or a funeral or a graduation or a job interview, sometimes you need a pair of dress shoes, and guys should have access to that. And a sandal, like whether it's a flip flop or a slide or something like that. And then house slippers and socks. And that's like a well-rounded kind of line of the basics. We've got all of those plus some casual shoes and boots in production right now. They all go to size 26E widths, which is an extra, extra wide. And we're working with factories to try to get the machinery expanded and modified to be able to make them bigger. The problem we made our sneakers, they hit last November. When they came in, we made them to size 20 because the factory said that was the biggest they could make them. We pressed the factory after the fact. We've been to Brazil multiple times. Our sneakers are made in Brazil. After we built a relationship with them and, that paid them.
Yeah.
They trusted us a little more. We visited them several times and we were like, we think you can make bigger. Maybe not 26, 25, 24, but like we know we can get a 21, 22. We want to know how big we can make shoes. And we spent about 6 months modifying some really expensive machinery in their factory and in the mold factory to be able to make the molds and the dies and the lasts, and the lasting machine itself can only support up to a certain size. So we actually had to change the way we're manufacturing our sneakers to be able to make them from size 21 to 25. But they did it. And the last time we were there in January, they had a sample for us. The mold factory was super excited to show us these massive molds that they had made. So we've opened all the molds, and they should be done probably in the next few weeks to be able to actually go into production on the 21 to 25s. And we're just super excited. That'll be the only production shoes available in the world in those sizes.
Really? Like, so at this point, anyone who's 21 and up are getting custom shoes?
Yeah. But to my knowledge, Boggs is like one of the only companies that made a 21. And we think, this is rumor, that it's for Shaq. Like he's reportedly a 23, but that's a Nike and they're not really true to size.
Yeah.
So we think that it was Shaq or somebody like Shaq that wanted a pair of hunting boots, and Boggs made them. And so they went ahead and made them all the way up. They already went to 18. So they've got 19 and 20 and 21 now. But that's it. Like above a size 20, there is like nothing available for guys. And that's only in a medium width, the Boggs are. So we make ours in medium, wide, and extra, extra wide widths, 4 widths. And then each whole size all the way up to 25. So that no matter what size or width the guy is, there's something it's not going to be flopping off his feet because it's too wide, or it's not going to be too tight because it's too narrow. That there's something for them to be able to wear. Now, we can't make them in like 20 colors and all these different styles, but we want the core, we'll have like a brown, a black, a white, the core colors and styles of sneakers. We've got a high top and a low top, that kind of thing, so that you can get a couple of different options, couple of different styles, and be able to have a selection in your wardrobe. Like most of these guys have never had anything that they can wear on their feet other than like a really gaudy looking basketball shoe that may have been made for some celebrity years ago.
Yeah. It's it's kind of funny because like you're not making anything smaller than 17 too, right?
Our shoes are made from 14 and up, but we've had serious conversations about dropping 14 and maybe even 15.
Yeah.
Because we sell so few of them.
Just out of curiosity, what is 17 your best seller, or?
Yeah, it's like a bell curve, and where normal sizes might be like a 9, 10, 11 is like the most popular sizes. Ours are 16, 17, and 18.
Okay. And then I can't imagine like you would even move that many at like 23 or 21 and up. No one else is making them. Like, how do you feel confident that you're going to be able to move those units and they're not just going to deteriorate over the next 5 years or whatever in inventory?
Fortunately, we don't have to order a lot of them. So we will only order a few pairs of each color, size, width. And we know we've got some customers that'll buy them. We're not going to order one or two because we don't want to. It takes a while to manufacture, and then they sit on a boat for a month and a half. And so we don't want to be out of stock for a really long time. But we're also not going to order a dozen pair of each because we know it's a small market, and there's a really good chance that we'll never recoup our initial mold costs on the like 22, 23, 24, and 25. And that's not really the goal. We want to be known as the company who has shoes for everybody that has big feet. Yeah. So if we don't, like it's kind of like Costco's hot dog that's $1. You know, it's a foot long hot dog. It's $1. The president CEO of the company said something like, the story is some executive went to him and was like, "We're losing money on these hot dogs. We got to change the price of the hot dogs. We got to raise the price." And he literally said, "I will rip your head off if you change the price of the effing hot dog." You know, I mean, it was like adamant that people not do that because it's what they're known. They are the place you can get that, you know, the stuff that's so cheap. And so we want to be known as the company that's got shoes for the guy that has big feet.
Yeah.
And if that means that in size 22 or 25, we're not able to make a whole lot of money, I don't want to lose a customer because when they were 16 or 17, we had them covered. And when they turn 18 or 19 or 20 and they end up in a bigger size, all of a sudden there's nothing available.
Yeah. It's such a, you know, ironically, a small market for a big product. You know, like you kind of have the opposite effect as me. Like you're not dealing with too many competitors. You have like 2 competitors, right?
We have a couple of what I would consider competitors. There are several people. If you Google, you'll find maybe 8 or 10 websites that say they sell large shoes. There's only a couple of companies that really are in like the same space we are as far as revenue bracket and length of time in business. We've been in business since 99, 2000. There's a couple out there that have been in business since about 98, and we're friendly with them. I mean, we're like frenemies, I guess you would call it. I mean, we feel like the competition's healthy. We have a little bit different of a selection and have different target audiences. And it's a very small market. Yeah.
So like as an entrepreneur, like how do you grapple with that? Like there's so much about entrepreneurship and always building and always growing. And like the reality is like, you know, you're going after one, like not even 1%. These are probably like a half of a percent of the population. And not only that, while you're not the only player in the space, you have to split that among like 3 other companies or 2 other companies. Like, how do you come to terms with the fact that like you're building in a very small niche that has a limited reach?
I mean, I've thought about it. We fell into our niche. I had a business partner that has big feet. He's not my partner anymore, but he still has big feet. It was a struggle, a personal struggle, and a pain point that was the idea for our business. And I think that it would be much more difficult to build a successful like footwear brand if you were just a Me Too kind of company. You're building a shoe for everybody. There's a million D2C footwear brands out there, and a lot of them I love personally. Like we buy a lot of them, doing market research. I have a pair of Kizik's on right now. I've got Beckett Simonins with me on this trip. I mean, they're amazing styles and designs. There's, Tecovas makes cowboy boots. They're a venture-backed company, but at the end of the day, it's really difficult to build a brand like that. They're VC-backed, and they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars a month on advertising and driving up I don't even want to know what their cost for customer acquisition is. So it would be very difficult to do that, where it's easier for me. I get a customer and I keep them for a really long time.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. The bad thing is, you have a cap on your maximum size, but there are a lot of people in smaller sizes, like your small size 12s that are maybe a 6E width or a double A width. And so there is an opportunity, if we're successful with our own brand, that we could expand to other hard to find sizes and widths that are in the normal range, but maybe it's an 11 AAA or something like that.
When you build out this new brand, you're starting with footwear. Anyone else in the space developing their own brand, or are you guys the first to branch out into that?
One of our other competitors has made some socks and insoles before. Both have publicly said in interviews that they have no desire to make shoes.
Yeah.
And I now know why. We've been working at it for several years now. I think it was like a couple of years ago, maybe the last time you and I were talking about this. And it's a very slow process and it's a very expensive process. We've invested a lot of money. And, we kind of put the whole business on the line. It's a very good, it's a very risky proposition, but we saw the margins in reselling the name brand products shrinking over the years. We've been in business 24 years. At about 15 to 18 years, it started getting harder and harder to make a decent profit and provide for our family. We're a small family-owned business. We have fewer than 10 employees, and we couldn't even make it doing 7 figures a year. And so we saw the writing on the wall that, we could get another 10 years out of it. We could eke out and slowly, revenue might eke up, but profit was going to eke down. It was going to decline over time to the point where it just wouldn't be a viable business.
So where I was going with this is you've got your own line of shoes. Do you see that brand growing beyond the boot, for lack of better words, into apparel and clothing from there?
I'm so new into the manufacturing game, and just to be honest, like the mistakes that we've made have been 6-figure mistakes. Like it's expensive, and it would probably be cheaper to make clothing and apparel actually, because there's much fewer setup costs. I know a few guys like the Tall Skinny Tees guys. He sold a couple of years ago. Yeah, that have been successful, and so there's definitely something in the back of my mind as an entrepreneur. There's always something in the back of your mind about like what's the next opportunity, and I'm just trying to laser focus right now and not think about that, because it's really important that we get this off the ground and that we're successful with it for just the general viability of the company as a whole.
You mentioned you've had some 6-figure losses or mistakes made. What were those lessons learned that you'll not do next time?
We started our manufacturing journey this time going to India, and we're working with a friend and colleague who was like a mentor, and we were kind of had some intermediaries between us and the factory, and not knowing what we didn't know, we just made some missteps and like skipped a few things in the quality control, and then we're trying to manufacture in the middle of COVID, and so we ended up tossing a good portion of the first container of merchandise we got in, and then
were they just falling apart?
Yeah, they were so badly produced, and the sizing was off, and like just everything was. The quality was bad, but then the sizing was actually off on like at least a third of them. So we could not sell a third of them. And then the others that were closer to the appropriate sizing had quality issues. So about half of those in addition have over time been discarded or donated or whatever. And so that was a big thing. And then the delays, like the back and forth on creating the samples and the sizing testing and quality assurance, the QC testing, and it's just one thing after another. We missed fourth quarter last year with our sneaker launch. The container actually got here on Cyber Monday. So those kind of gaffes, ultimately it's my responsibility as the owner or the CEO, whatever of the company. But those kind of delays, like that alone, not being able to have that for the full fourth quarter, easily cost us $150,000 in sales. That we still pre-sold them and we still made money on them, but the amount of time it's going to take me to turn that inventory now, because the first half of the year is much slower than the last quarter.
Yeah.
So those kind of things, then that's less cash flow I have going into the next few styles, but I'm still paying my full staff. I'm still paying for a big warehouse. I'm still paying for this product development on new styles. And so it reduces the runway we have and the number of styles we can actually make. So every kind of delay, every 2 week or month delay that we end up with just reduces our total like potential runway that we have. And
Yeah.
so it's coming to be close to kind of crunch time.
Where and how do you find the manufacturer that you found in Brazil?
We've used some agencies, and we've just reached out to like industry associations in particular countries. We've looked at Portugal, Brazil, Mexico, India, China, and we're currently manufacturing in both Brazil and China. We just reached out to like in Brazil, it's a footwear association, and found contacts through them that then introduced us to other people and introduced us to other people. And then we just went down there.
Yeah.
So we booked a trip to Brazil early last year and physically went and met with a dozen different companies. You know, some were mold factories, shoe factories, insole factories, you know, leather tanneries, to see, are they legitimate? You know, is the factory big, small? What kind of U.S. customers are they doing work for? I mean, you walk around a shoe factory and you'll see the logos on the sides of the shoes.
Yeah.
So you know who they're doing work for, if it's a only domestic market or if they're exporting to the U.S. A lot of them will say, oh, yeah, we'll make for the U.S. We make for the U.S., but then you go in their factory and they're not.
Right. It is, for anyone who's new to this space, there's just so much value in being there and like getting that plane ticket and showing up on the doorstop. We've had to do that where we try to schedule a tour with one of our manufacturers, and they're like, oh, no, I can't do it, and then we just went there and we knocked on the door and we're like, give us a tour. Like, we're spending tens of thousands of dollars with you guys. I want to see your operations. And then when I got in there, I realized they were just importing it from India. Like, they weren't manufacturing it there. And it's like, okay, well.
Yeah, it's sobering. We did that in India when we went, finally did go. First container we made, we had not stepped foot on Indian soil before they made those shoes. So after that bad experience and tossing half of a container, we went to India, found some good factories, worked with some suppliers over there. But we did what you just said. We went to the factory to try to get some, not retribution, but like work with us. Let's figure this quality control issue out. Let's, remake some of these shoes, whatever. And we knocked on the door and we got a meeting with some low level, person. There was a huge factory, and I'm not going to name them, but they're this massive company that has multiple different factories in this area. And, it was clear they knew this was a one-hit wonder thing. They were going to do one thing for us, and they didn't care how well they did it because they didn't want any future business. Oh, it was just like a money grab, essentially, on their part.
Because, and they're like, oh, we sent it out.
Yep. We gave them what they asked for or whatever. We got their money, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we learned very quickly how important it is to make those personal relationships with the factories. So the factories we work with now are like second and third generation factories, where the owners and their children are actively working in the business, and they have some of their employees are also like second or third generation, assembly people or sewers, or, they're super high skilled workers that are like craftsmen and artisans, and they take a lot of pride in their work, and they love seeing us come there. They want to host us.
Right.
And it's a totally different kind of environment than somebody who's like, no, you can't come here.
Brazil's a big place. Do these manufacturers end up being kind of in the same towns?
Yeah, what we found in India and Brazil as well is that there are regions that make certain kinds of footwear. So like in the South, there in Brazil, they have a lot of fashion footwear, and where we are, which is outside, a good ways outside, but outside of Sao Paulo area, it's your men's and casual and some dress. So that's the area that we are. But yeah, they have the entire supply chains there. So the mold factories are there, the tanneries are there, the shoe factories are there, some knit upper factories are there. And so when we visit, it's a long way to get there, but then we're able to visit within an hour or two of each other, all of these different resources. And they don't always have all the components. Sometimes they import something very specialized, but they have most of the supply chain locally, which helps. Some areas that we've gone to and looked at don't have a lot of the supply chain. And that's the problem we always get the question of, why don't you make shoes in the United States? There's no supply chain here.
Right.
There's nowhere to get the eyelets and the soles made. And, there's no tanneries here. There's leather here, but they send the leather off because tanning it is a very
not pretty
process. That's a good way to put it.
Do you consider hiring like a QA person to like inspect the product before it even goes on a boat or before you pay the final payment? Or
that's always the goal, and we now have that in Brazil. We've got a great team in Brazil that's like our boots on the ground.
Yeah,
they're a full size, like a company with multiple employees, and they help us in both the product development and the testing and QC. And their role is they're seasoned experts in footwear manufacturing. They've worked in the industry there locally, but they're also local people that speak Portuguese fluently, that speak English fluently. So they're also like a communicator for us, where when we might say something to a factory and we're trying to communicate something, a point or a material specification, the words that we use and the colloquialisms we use in America don't always translate to them, and they'll say they understand it and they think they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they're not trying to do what we are asking. It's just that there's a loss somewhere in that communication train. There's a misunderstanding in the translation. And so having a partner there that speaks the language, that can visit the factory daily if they need to, it really helps. And we pay them just a percentage of literally everything we make.
How did you find that agency? Is it just Google or?
Yeah, we worked with the Brazilian footwear kind of consulate or whatever, and were recommended to this larger agency. We went and visited with them. They were super gracious, and the owner works with a lot of major U.S. companies. They made shoes for Nordstrom's for years and years and years. And we're a little bit too small of a brand for them at this time. I mean, they just don't have the bandwidth to add a lot of small accounts. So they referred us to a smaller company that's still a pretty large company that is who we're using now, but have remained a resource for us. So they have a lot of technical capabilities like testing and relationships with suppliers and second and third tier, materials that we've leaned on the bigger company multiple times to, like if our contacts don't have what we need, we're like, oh, can you ask, can you ask your mentors, for lack of a better word, and they're for nothing. They just want to expand the footwear industry in Brazil.
Yeah.
So they're happy to help. And that's what we found with Brazil in general, is that they want to build a larger footwear business. They're huge in Brazil, obviously, as a domestic market, and they make a lot of major brands that we see here in the U.S. They make for their domestic market there, but they want to export, and they do a good job. They make good quality shoes, and it's very convenient because, it's a long flight, but the time zones line up, and, they speak very good English, and it's a beautiful country, and the food is really good. So it's just really convenient to make shoes there.
One thing that I want to touch base on is you've been doing this for about a quarter century, which is crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
And what you've done recently is go all in. And why don't you walk through what that means to go all in, and like why you decided to do that, and the risks that you're taking, and kind of like your mentality on this process as you face the adversity you're facing?
Sure. Like a lot of businesses, as COVID waned down a little bit, supply chain issues popped up, and lots of industries got, strapped like towards the end of 20. The footwear industry is on such a lag. It takes so long to develop and produce shoes that didn't really affect our industry. A lot of the styles that were already in production still made it out and made it to us. And we had a warehouse full of shoes because we planned like an entire half a year ahead of time, but it hit us eventually. And in like 21, we had some serious supply chain issues in addition to the just general decline in profit or in margin that we were talking about earlier. We saw these supply chain issues that we just couldn't get the shoes to sell. And if you can't get them, you can't sell them. Right. So it was clearly going to be a major issue for us. So we applied for and got an EIDL loan. It was a pretty large one.
What does EIDL stand for?
It was a COVID economic something disaster. It's a disaster recovery loan. Like,
Okay.
It's essentially for people who are economically impacted by the pandemic.
And it's no longer available?
No longer available, but it was a pretty long-term, low-interest loan for companies who were impacted. And, we qualified because our supply chain was impacted so dramatically and we couldn't get the shoes to sell. And instead of investing that in like begging brands to make, like we've been begging them for 20 years, they hadn't made what we need. Our solution to that problem was to invest that in our own brand, to make the styles that our customers are asking for so that we have stability in our own supply chain. We still want to sell all 40 other brands we sell, and we hope to add brands. But if we can make our own shoes, if a major brand discontinues a popular style, it may be the only style like that that's available in big sizes. So we can then go design something that, say, a casual slip-on boot or something that is available so that our customers at least have an option in, say dress shoes. Because right now there's no dress shoes in a size 20.
Right.
Just, they don't exist. And so that was kind of our reasoning behind it. But it's a huge investment and it's a huge payment. And, we've been working on it for a couple of years now, and delay after delay, some 6-figure mistakes, and it's a learning experience. It's a much more of a learning experience than we thought it would be. There's a reason it's hard and expensive, right? It's not like everybody can go do it. So we've learned a lot of lessons, and we're kind of at the crunch time where we've got some more sneakers. We've got casual shoes and boots, water shoes and sandals, house slippers, dress shoes, all in development and at various stages of development and production, some on the water, some in production actively, and some, in the end stages of development that we are really hoping make it for fourth quarter this year. We've already missed Father's Day.
Yeah.
If they don't make it, it's a risk. It's definitely, I hate to speak in absolutes and say, the business isn't, we're going to go out of business or we're going to go bankrupt or something like that. But it's a very real possibility. We did put all our eggs in this basket. Yeah.
It's not like you're just developing one product. You're doing a whole line.
Yeah. We're doing a whole line. It's very expensive. And, even if it all gets here, if it doesn't sell or there are quality issues or anything like that, you still got to pay for it. You got to pay the rent. You got to pay the bills.
Yeah. So you can't make mistakes on those early runs either, which makes it very stressful.
Yeah, we've made all the mistakes, the big mistakes we can make. Now we'll have, there'll be quality issues like every brand we sell. We occasionally have, it's usually about 1 or 2% that have some kind of defect, and they're not always defects that are so bad that they can't be worn or can't be sold. But it's just that happens, this is 1%. It's okay. It's like an acceptable kind of thing. We inspect everything before it goes out to our customers anyway. But if it's 10% or 20% or like a third of a container, then you're in some serious trouble.
Yeah. Where can people buy your shoes?
You can find us at 2BigFeet.com. And if you Google Michael Ellis or Brandon Eley, you'll find us on a lot of other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere else.
Yep. And then you're on X, huh? Follow you on X? No.
Yeah, I'm on X. I'm Beley, Beley on X, and I'm Brandon Eley on YouTube. And yeah, I think over the next few months, I might talk about our journey a little bit more, because it seems it's definitely been fun and interesting and a little stressful, and it's going to get a whole lot more interesting in the next few months.
Brandon's got a very stoic demeanor to him. I know, like, just from my perception of how hard and difficult business is, that it's a lot of stuff that he's going through. And I hope that you open up and you share it, because there's a lot of people who are going through challenging times right now that will find comfort in knowing that you can get through it, because you're going to show them the pathway to get through it and to build a nice business.
Yeah, thanks, man.
As always, this has been another Ecommerce Conversations. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And keep on growing.